right, I'll go. Yeah, no, I really appreciate you running. I really appreciate you getting yourself out there and taking the risk, essentially, for something you believe in. But there's a couple big issues I have. I feel like a lot of the things you presented are really good cases as to why you should run for a state representative. A lot of these cases, like when it comes to teacher wages, I feel like get handled at a state level anyway. And then property taxes, like you said, again, a state level issue. And, you know, if we left it to said state to handle the redistribution of taxes, that makes sense too, to have it in the state's hands. And like you said, they did also introduce, or they were trying to introduce different legislation for the states when it comes to prescriptions, like you said. So I feel like all these things are not only more achievable, but are also possible on the state level. So why wouldn't you try to run for a state position rather than a federal position? And then at the same time, do you have any sort of immigration reform you're trying to seek? You know, are you in favor of mass deportations? Would you seek the end of ITIN, repeal the Hart-Celler Act of 1965, repeal Immigration Act of 1990, things like that?
So the biggest reason that I'm not running for the state legislature is because I would like to see the changes made nationally. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of conversation that's being done in Congress that are tied to these same issues, whether it's our income, and yeah, a lot of more local areas handle the issues. But the reason they're handling the issues is because the federal agencies kind of gave up on them, is my take on it. They stopped really, they gave out the budget and they said, you guys figure it out. It's kind of my take on that. And so that's where I think the federal government, in a sense, now they should be limited in how much influence, or I guess how much they get in like towards people. But I think that when it comes to eliminating certain taxes, or if it's going to be making a change that's especially something that's going to affect everybody, or we want it to affect everybody, it definitely has to be audited through the federal government. But the reason I'm not looking to go through the state legislature is primarily because I don't think they're going to deliver the results we're looking for. I don't think they can deliver the results that we are wanting because they are not looking at these issues at all. Even if we did bring that up as an issue, other states are still dealing with these issues, and that's not what I want. Even though Missouri is my priority and this is my home, I do want to also see that the change that we're trying to make here at home is also benefiting other states and other people and every family. So it's more across the board. And that's why I say, you know, especially with property taxes, that's going to be a challenge. That won't be easy. That might have to go through different routes and different things. That would be probably just as hard as like ending ITIN, because of how the money's funneled in and how it's connected with the economy. And so the last thing that I would want to see is that American families or American workers are having to suffer during this time we're trying to make a change that may not end up, well, as we know with our government, every 4 years when someone else gets in office, a lot of things end up just getting flipped back or repealed or changed. That's kind of the dilemma that I observe. And so it seems like even when we step one direction, in 2 or 4 years we could just end up stepping right back where we were, if that makes sense. Because we have a Republican and then we have a Democrat, a Republican and then a Democrat, which has been the trend in the past 20 years, and that's fair, you know, how people want to vote. But when I think about it, is that really doing any good for us when we're just trying to put in things, especially like executive orders, let's say, because that's the biggest thing that I can think of, like off the top of my head. You sign a whole bunch of those into law, and then another president comes in, and then they're going to take 50 or 100 of them off. So all that change just all gone? Did that actually make a difference? Did it hurt people in that process? Or what was the ramifications of that, I guess would be the better term. Because all of those executive orders can go very far. Some of them can be as small as, like the tariff spending, or it can go all the way as far as having ICE going into certain states and all the different things that they have there. So as far as like immigration reform, my biggest thing is I just want to do it in a way that is safe, and with everything that's been going on politically in its dangerous kind of volatile way, I don't want everyday families, whether they're legal or not, and I'm not saying that I condone illegal immigrants being here, because I don't, but I don't want anybody to fear, being able to walk down the street with their family. Like, that's a concern for me. Just as like just as an everyday Missouri person, like if I were to walk down the street, that's not a fear I would ever want to have. That's what I want to avoid. Let me put it that way. I am in favor of deporting illegal immigrants that are not working towards becoming legal citizens, that are not looking to get an actual permanent citizenship. Not just like a temporary visa, not, just be here for a couple months and then leave or do blah, 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 because I think that actually can be a little bit of the reason that we have some of the domestic terrorism that we have in some aspects. People kind of come in and out, and we saw what happened in Texas a couple weeks ago when the stuff with Iran started. That's, that can be kind of a part of that, and that's something that we have to be cautious of. I don't want criminals here. I don't want illegal immigrants here. I want to make sure that we're doing everything by the Constitution, that we're doing everything the right way, and that's why I want to really do my best to read into learning more about how the Constitution lays that out, because they really do lay it out in a specifically broad way, I guess is the best way I can put that, because they put specifics in there, but everyone's considered, everyone should be given an opportunity in the process, at least to be heard, because I wouldn't want to take a father from their kid just because he's an illegal immigrant. The kid is too, more than likely. But either which way, separating that process or doing anything in that sort, that doesn't benefit anybody. Until it's better to keep them together, it's better to find a solution, and it's better to, if they're wanting to be here and they're wanting to contribute to our economy and our workforce, then they can take the steps to becoming a permanent resident. And that's how I feel about citizens that are wanting to stay in America, that are currently not legal immigrants. If they want to stay, there's a legal way to go about it, and they need to take that legal route of doing that. Otherwise, there's repercussions, outside of my control, that I can't control every day, and the last thing that I want to see is any kind of violence, especially like any kind of political violence. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see people getting hurt. It doesn't do any good for people trying to bring honest, good change. So I hope that kind of answered a little bit of that.
Kind of didn't. To be honest with you, I feel like you didn't really give me any sort of bills you're after, any sort of reform you're after in particular.
When it comes to immigration, to be honest, there isn't any specific bill or reform I'm going after. There isn't anything in particular that I'm focused on. It doesn't mean I'm not open to looking at it. There hasn't been anything that's came to my attention, or that voters in the majority have said to me, that have said, hey, this is really affecting us. What can we do to modify, rectify, remove, repeal, amend, change? I just haven't had that conversation.
Okay.
With a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say like it's not a concern or an issue to me, because if it's a concern or an issue to a voter, then I'm gonna take it down and I'm going to look into it. It's important. All those issues are important. That's one thing that I actually really care about whenever I hold any kind of meeting like this, is when I have this very last part, any conversation that you and I are gonna have, I'm gonna take all that stuff down, I'm gonna go home, and I'm gonna do a lot more deep research not just like into what people are saying. I mean, I'm going to look into constitutionally how did these come about? How did we put these in place? What are the effects? What can we do to maybe improve and change our immigration laws so that we can support the American worker first and make it seem and feel that way too, because it needs to be that way. It should be that way, especially at home. So
Yeah.
I do want to be clear on that. Like I don't want it to come off like a dismissive. Like it is something I am going to be looking into.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And then the other part of it is when it comes to a lot of your issues, the closest thing I've heard to any actual bill or legislation laid out is really just with how you're going to try and approach taking away property taxes federally. I've not really heard any other bill or act or anything like that you're going to try and march forward for some of these other things you've talked about, like the teachers' wages and stuff like that. Again, an issue I feel like would be personally better addressed on a state level. And I feel like I would love it if you did go for a state level and do these things. And especially there's things that I probably won't be able to affect on a Congress level, on a U.S. Congress level when it comes to like SB 739. I know you and me have talked about that. You know, if I was a fire alarm installer trying to do a fire alarm for the state, I'd have to sign this piece of paper saying I'm not going to boycott the state of Israel or anyone else doing business with the state of Israel. You know, if you said, hey, I want to back out of this Congress race for U.S. Congress and go for state, and I think this is one of the huge bills I needed to go and go after to protect the American worker, and I also want to go and I want to help when it comes to wages for teachers, and I also want to go after property taxes. I feel like you would have a very good stance on things to go after in that realm, instead of basically trying to go from the bottom up. And, you know, these aren't even things that are really getting done right now. So then we'd have to do this whole other process that we've never really talked about. And you see what I mean? Versus like if we were handling it at the state level, it'd be state level taxes. We get that done. Okay, state level taxes, that's for the teachers. That's done.
I think,
and then
I think that is the biggest problem is the federal government's not talking about it. I think that is the problem, and that's why I'm wanting to actually elevate these issues.
but you'd be the state guy to talk about it, to bring it up,
Well,
to fight for it.
I mean, at the end of the day, the governor isn't going to do what we want, and he hasn't been. So I think it's more important that we go about changing things across uniformly. That's how I would go about it.
But wouldn't it be the same argument on the federal level as it is the state level? You know, you're having to convince every other person, every other representative versus the same thing on the state level.
Yeah, you're right. On the state level, because they have that same legislative process as they do at the federal level. My goal is, why put in all that work if you're only going to affect X amount of people when you could be actually making a difference for everybody in your country? Why would I invest all that time if I could be making a bigger impact? If I'm going to invest $10, $20, $30,000 of my hard-earned money, why wouldn't I want to go ahead and put that towards making a bigger difference than just for 500,000 people than I could for 300 million? If it's actually something good, because I'm not signing my name on something that doesn't benefit people. I'm not going to sign my name on something that's going to be signing all of your money off into another country or into their military. That's not our job. They need to figure that out themselves. I feel very firmly about that, and I'll tell them that at Congress too. Because at the end of the day, there should not be real. I mean, to be honest, there really shouldn't be a reason that we're in this war, because it all got started with us getting jumbled into it. When I heard that Iran said, yeah, so we can't hit the mainland of the United States, why are we involved in this? At all. They're not a threat. We need to just not be involved. If Israel wants to deal with it, they can deal with it. But not our money, not our taxes, not our hard-earned income. And yet, here we are. And I think that's why a lot of people are frustrated. I think that's why, because a lot of foreign influence is in not just impacting the decisions that are being made in that case, but it's affecting our economy now. And eventually it can probably start to affect other factors like our healthcare, and maybe depending on how long the duration goes on, it could really have a big impact on our deficit.
Yeah, and then what federal law are you trying to seek that would improve wages for teachers? I know you're talking about at a state level, so that's where I get into this other realm. Is what would you enact statewide or federally? Would it be a federal minimum wage for teachers? Is that what you're trying to instill?
It would just be, yeah, the federal minimum wage, just like we have the federal minimum wage of $7.25, which is way too low. But it would be something minimum that the states have to at least go off of that amount. If they want to go higher, they're more than welcome to. If they want to pay their teachers $100,000, they can. But at least teachers are being compensated at minimum amounts so they can take care of their families. So.
All right. Well, that was it for me. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you, everybody here. Thank you for doing what you're doing. The invitation is out. You know, if you'd like to, I hate saying the word drop out, but if you'd like to stop your campaign and support mine, I'd love to have you aboard to help us. You know, I think a lot of these issues can be handled at the state level. And I feel like you're making very good arguments that can be handled at the state level. And I feel like I'm not hearing enough for one of the biggest things I see every single day. And I feel like we need to have immigration reform. And this is a huge thing that no one's talking about. And this is why I feel like I have to run. You know, this is not something I want to do.
Why do you feel like it's not being talked about on the federal level?
Because you're not talking about it. Eric Burleson's not talking about it. Missy Hesketh's not talking about it. And then Trump himself is trying to make the distinction from criminal illegal aliens from all other illegal aliens as well. So he's taking a step back away from mass deportations. He's also not doing any federal level immigration reform as well. You know, we're not seeing it anywhere across the board. And this is when we should have been seeing it or would have been seeing it is this last year. So we have the House, we have the Senate, we have the presidency, but we've had no serious immigration reform at all. So how do I feel like it's not being talked about? I mean, we've not seen any laws pushed forward. And so I go to my job site every single day where I see a lot of these jobs are basically being systematically replaced through all these legal means, you know, work visas, whatever. Some of it's illegal, but some of it very well is legal replacer, you know, completely taking the power away from the American worker. You know, again, like this electrician company, all these electrician companies in the area, they can't find people, they can't keep people because their wages are so dang low, you know? Well, what incentive do they have to increase their wages if they have an endless supply of workers to choose from? After they can't find any more, they just supplement it with a replacer of a foreign worker.
Employers are willingly choosing illegal and undocumented immigrants over American workers?
No, I think in this situation, it's actually work visas. You know, push comes to shove, they can't find the worker. What do? I supplement it with a work visa. You know, paid at what's the going rate for a starting electrician? $18 an hour. A lot of guys don't want to work $18 an hour as a commercial electrician. So you see a lot of people coming in and out of those jobs. They don't want to be working for them. My boss came up here as an electrician and said I couldn't work as an electrician around here. You only get paid at the time $15, $16 an hour. So he went into low voltage. You know, so you have a mass exodus of workers coming out of here, and then what incentive do I have as an employer to ever raise those wages if I can just simply replace them?
So what's your solution?
So we need to have mass immigration reform when it comes
what's
to.
your solution for the wages?
We need to have mass immigration reform when it comes to H-2B visas, H-1B visas, all sorts of work visas, because the replacer of the American worker is what's completely taking away the leverage.
I mean, that's the oldest argument in the book for making people afraid of immigrants is telling them.
I'm not trying to make anybody afraid.
I know, but it's no, you're not. But
I'm
you're
not, I
arguing
swear.
the points of it.
Yeah.
And in the middle of seeing immigrants being treated the way they're being treated, I'm extremely sensitive to protecting the argument, the common arguments that have gone throughout history, all of like from the 1800s on, is making people afraid of immigrants and saying they're taking our jobs. But only big corporations use that argument. Like it is a money grab. So if there is a shortage of workers, then bring in workers that are willing to do the job.
And this is where I'm saying the shortage of workers is sourced from. I'm trying to break it down to even just this individual company. They have no incentive to bring up their wages for a starting electrician at $18 an hour if I can just go and replace said worker and have someone, yes, that's fully willing to work for that $18 an hour, because I can go and choose from that endless supply. If there's no one to choose from, there's no one at all, the wage has to come up. The wage has to come up. But if I have an endless supply of workers to choose from because I cannot find anyone, this is the going rate. This is what the going rate is. I'm trying to stay competitive in the area as an employer. What can I do? I'm going to do everything I can legally, and I think that's totally fine as an employer to try and do anything you can legally to stay competitive in the area. But that doesn't mean we can't have these programs that basically supplement the workforce to where we take away the voice of the American worker, to where they go, yeah, I'm not going to work here. Eventually they're going to come to their senses and raise their wages. When that's not the case, as soon as they leave, right behind them, they got someone to replace them.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
So they raise the wages. People are willing to work. Who's paying?
Inflation. You're going to have
it hurts
inflation.
you.
Correct.
So it hurts me.
Correct.
Why? Why would I want that? If I don't mind that immigrants are coming and working.
And replacing the American worker. So you're saying that is, where does the payment come from? Where does the trade-off come from? That is the trade-off. You're right. Why can't we just simply replace the American worker and have little to less inflation? Why can't I just have that cost away from me?
Well, let me ask her, is it really replacing the American worker, or are they not wanting to be in that field of work? Because that's what I also see a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to do that type of work.
I don't mind doing it at all. I mean,
I'm just
when...
saying a lot of other people don't.
True enough, but if I'm going to be in a field like an electrician, why would I work $18 an hour starting out there when I can work $20 an hour starting out as a low volt guy?
I mean, if you have rent that you have to pay next week and you're broke and you have a family to take care of, you're going to do.
If the option is there for the higher wage, I'm going to take it, essentially.
Well, yeah, if you're offered a higher wage, of course.
So why wouldn't I? Yeah, I wouldn't stay at the electrician job offering less money. That has no incentive to raise their wage.
So that would be on the employer, that they need to adjust their wages.
Yes, but they're going to do everything they can legally.
And also, when you think about work visas and then them hiring and having to go through an I-9 process, it needs to be very merit-based. It should not be based on if they're an immigrant coming in and doing this and blah, blah, blah. If you've been doing something for 10 years and that's the experience you have, then you're getting paid for the experience you have. But at the end of the day, that's going to come back to an employer discrimination issue, in my opinion. That's where that needs to come back to, because it doesn't make sense to be paying more to someone that's not documented or on a work visa than a person who wants the same job. Now, if they don't want the job and you got to fill the job, I mean, I don't really know what else to say. Someone's got to do it, and if they're getting paid, they're going to do it. But at the same time, that's at the employer's discretion. It is a profitability thing. I've ran businesses for years, so I mean, it is a money grab, which sucks. But the government is not going to. They're not going to make a change that's going to affect the economy in such a drastic way like that, or kill off a lot of small businesses. That is the concern and worry that I have with that.
Is this going to kill off small businesses?
It very well could hurt them.
I mean, we're currently seeing, again, replacement of these jobs through these programs. So I get that.
So what
It's
percentage have been replaced, and by how many thousands of people in Missouri?
well, when it comes to foreign-born workers, a lot of these jobs, like drywall, is at 60% foreign-born representation. So 60% of the workers are all foreign-born,
So
including.
if I went to a construction site, 60% of those construction workers are going to be foreign-born?
More than likely.
Okay, so when you say foreign-born, do you mean like they weren't born in the United States?
Correct.
Okay, so how 60%? Where is that number coming from? Because that is not something I've ever observed at a construction site. Not 60%.
It's the Board of Labor and Statistics.
Okay, for Missouri?
No,
specifically?
federally.
Okay, so you're talking across the whole country.
Yes, but I've also looked into state level as well.
Okay.
And it's very similar. Actually, in Missouri, the drywall industry in particular is worse on that number than it is federally.
Okay, so again, I would go back to why are the employers discriminating on that? Why are they choosing to pay more to those other people than to American workers?
They're not. They're not.
It sounds
That's the going rate for the area. They have to charge whatever the going rate is for the area, and that's fine. The going rate has no incentive to increase because there's an endless supply of workers, if that makes any sense. There's no supply and demand naturally happening whenever you have a constant supply.
I was just curious because you said they're leaving to go for a higher paying job, so if they're not changing their wages or they're not working on adjusting their wages, that doesn't really.
Why would they adjust their wages when they could just replace the worker?
Because it depends how the government would want to handle that.
No, I mean, no, the employer. Why would the employer want to just raise the wages if they can replace the worker?
Why would they replace a good worker that has been dependable?
No. Worker left.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they? Workers are leaving, they can't keep anybody, but they can simply replace them. Why would they increase the wages?
If workers are leaving, chances are they're probably not even going to touch their wages. They probably can't afford them as it is. If they have that many people leaving at one time, they probably are not able to run their business. They are probably not going to end up rehiring a vast majority at once. That would be my assumption.
Okay.
Just from watching a business, because if 10 people walked out right now, my first thought is, okay, well, now I'm really screwed and I don't know what I'm going to do, but raising wages, lowering them, I just now lost 10 employees and I have to fill that gap. And so raising the wages, that's not going to make a difference, but bringing in people that aren't qualified to do the job isn't going to make a better difference either.
Okay.
So that's also where I'm a little confused, because when you say foreign born, you're also you're tying it a little bit to like it's because it's an incentivized pay thing from the company. But then,
No.
But that's what you said.
No, so essentially what I'm telling you is, why as a company, if I'm having problems keeping anybody, people are just leaving. Why would I want to increase my wages if I can just replace the worker? Currently we have, work visas, H-1Bs, so I can just turn around, replace the worker, have them come in at $18 an hour, and I'm still competitive within the area. Yeah, it goes back to the pay, exactly.
Okay, so you proved that point. It goes back to the pay of how the employer is handling that. And whenever someone leaves, they can choose someone that's not experienced, but paying them more, paying them the same, because they're foreign born. I'm just trying to track that all together.
The government makes it easy for these companies to supplement their workers
I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. What I'm not understanding is you're saying they're systematically replacing the American worker, but if American workers aren't jumping in to do that, or enough people aren't saying those jobs are being taken from me, then what's the actual concern? Is it people that can't speak English on the job? That's the problem? Is it they don't do the job well? Like, what is actually the issue? Because there's more of an issue here than just a little bit of a pay.
Yeah, no, the secondary issue is of course they don't speak English, but the mass replacer is happening because the wages are not increasing. So then they're having a mass exodus of people leaving because it's not affordable to stay in this industry. So what does the employer do to stay? He wants to stay competitive, keep his wages lower, and hey, that's the going wage for the area, $18 an hour for a starting electrician, okay? If I can just simply replace the workers with a work visa at the same going rate, what incentive do I have to ever increase my wages in the area?
Right, so, but then your goal to completely reform and remove ITIN, so then you can't have them do that, and having other people have higher wages, that ramification temporarily would be better.
ITN only has to really do with illegal immigrants.
But it's still millions of dollars that are poured into our economy.
But it's not necessarily what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about H-1B and work visa reform,
Right.
It's about limiting actually how many we're actually bringing into the United States to replace these jobs, or completely taking these programs away altogether. That way we don't have the ability just to go, okay, I can't find anybody, go ahead and replace them. Go ahead and replace. If we don't have the ability to replace them, then we have to increase the wages. There is going to be an inflationary cost. There's a cost to keep the American worker. What is it? It's that. If you don't want to keep the American worker and you don't want to see that cost, go ahead and replace them. And so that's what we're seeing across the board.
Yeah, I would say, I'll take it back to my same point. I think it comes back to the employer making that decision at that time on hiring those people.
But it's legal.
And if it's legal.
And that's totally fine. Yeah. I mean, I'm saying we need to make it to where we're not allowing the mass importation and the mass replacer. It's totally legal for them, and there's no sense in making something. What are we going to do? then to fix it if it's not limiting these programs? If you don't think there's a problem there, is there a problem there at all? Do you think there's a problem there? Is there a solution to fix it? Is it not any of the things I've been saying? Is it not reform on immigration? Is there not reform on H-1Bs and work visas as well?
I mean, from kind of just what I'm taking away, it sounds like I hear what you are saying, but what I am still trying to piece together is the idea of the replacement of American worker. I have yet to see that.
I see it every day. I mean,
I hear you.
I'm trying to,
when
I'm
talking to hundreds of other people, they're not voicing that to me as their primary concern. So you're seeing that on the construction site on your everyday job, and I understand that. But I'm not going to I don't want to take an issue and turn it into a really big, massive, possibly detrimental issue to our country if it's not something that's going to be beneficial.
okay.
If we can't turn it into something beneficial.
Okay, yeah, no, so you currently have no goals for immigration reform. And
I haven't set expectations yet. But
Okay.
I'm going to once I actually look at the laws and the Constitution and I make the right decision, because I'm not going to put my name on something that doesn't make sense or it's not going to be right for everybody.
I agree. If you don't know about it, then don't put your name on it. That makes sense. That sounds fair. But that is my biggest argument, my biggest qualm. And, you know, if you don't have a position on it, then I still feel like I have to run. Does that make sense?
Okay.
This is something I don't want to do.
No,
It's
I
something I
totally
feel like I
understand.
have to do.
I totally
But I do appreciate you for your time. I do appreciate you doing this. This is always at great cost, great personal cost for yourself and putting yourself out there. And ma'am, I do appreciate you saying something. I do appreciate hearing from you at least. Hey, thank you, Grayson. Have a blessed day, brother. Yep. See you guys. See ya. You too.